There is something that deeply unsettles me when I observe certain patterns in counseling sessions. I see men who are hardworking, competent, have built stable careers and, at least at first glance, lead fulfilled lives, yet they apologize for simply existing. They literally apologize for being hungry, for being tired, or for having feelings. And when I ask them why they do this, the answer is always the same. I don't know. I've always been like that, but I do know. And after decades of working with men who grew up in families where love was a currency, I've discovered something disturbing. These are not personality traits, they are scars. Invisible scars that shape how you love, how you allow yourself to be loved, and why you keep choosing people who make you relive your childhood all over again. If you constantly feel the need to prove yourself, if calm love makes you nervous, if something inside you tenses up whenever someone shows you sincere compassion, then what I want to share with you today is not just a psychological observation. It's a set of puzzle pieces that explain why your relationships often feel like emotional battlegrounds where you never seem to win. What I've come to understand is that these patterns are not coincidences, nor are they strange quirks of your personality. They are the result of a very specific kind of emotional conditioning, a conditioning that began long before you had words to understand it, and one that even decades later still influences every decision you make in love. Because here's the thing, in the brain of a child growing up with narcissistic parents, something crucial happens. Its nervous system is programmed for permanent emotional survival, and this program doesn't automatically shut off when you turn 18. It becomes your operating system for navigating the adult world, especially in intimate relationships. Think about it for a moment. Your emotional GPS was calibrated in hostile terrain. Now, decades later, you're trying to find your way through the landscape of closeness and love, but your system is still scanning for dangers that no longer exist, anticipating betrayal that won't come, and preparing for battles that aren't happening. The result is emotional exhaustion, disguised as hypervigilance in love. Let me now walk you through 7 patterns I've identified. 7 concrete ways this early conditioning manifests in your love life. And as I describe each one, I ask you not only to notice if you recognize yourself in them, but also to pay attention to how your body reacts when you do. The first pattern I call the compulsive urge to endlessly explain yourself. This isn't about talking too much, it's about literally not being able to exist without justifying your existence. You write long messages where a simple yes or no would do. You feel every opinion needs to be framed, every decision defended, every emotion cushioned with a preemptive apology. That's not communication, that's survival. Your inner child learned that a simple no could trigger an emotional explosion, that their needs had to be explained, justified, almost begged for in order to be seen as valid at all. And so you develop this strategy. If I just explain enough, give enough reasons, make myself small enough, then maybe I'll be acceptable. What's fascinating from a neurological perspective is that this programming affects your ability to set boundaries. For you, no isn't a complete sentence. It's the beginning of a negotiation in which you have to prove that your boundary is reasonable, justified, and harmless. But here's the truth. When you turn every boundary into a dissertation, you unconsciously invite others to question your right to say no. That brings me to the second pattern, what I call hypervigilant empathy. You have an almost superhuman ability to read micro-expressions, detect changes in tone, notice tension in body language that others miss. Before you even enter a room, you know who's in a bad mood, who's tense, who needs something. It seems like a superpower, but in truth it's an early warning system developed to survive in emotionally unpredictable environments. Your nervous system was trained to detect emotional storms before they broke. You learned that your parents' moods determined whether there would be peace or drama, and that you would be blamed for things that were never your responsibility. So you developed emotional radars meant to protect you. But here's what I've seen over years of work. When you live in this constant state of alert, you can never truly relax in love. You become the partner who anticipates needs, avoids conflict, continuously adapts to the emotional state of the other. It sounds caring, but in reality, it's exhausting. Intimacy cannot grow where everything must be constantly controlled. Which brings me directly to the third pattern, perhaps the most painful, your emotional allergy to genuine tenderness. When someone is truly kind to you, when they offer sincere attention and affection without an ulterior motive, your body doesn't relax. It tenses up. It braces itself. It asks, what's coming next? What's the price? What does this person want in return? This reaction isn't paranoia, it's the intelligence of trauma. Your nervous system learned that tenderness in your family of origin was an investment that expected a return. Kindness was the beginning of manipulation. Declarations of love came with emotional invoices due with interest, and always at the moment you least expected it. That's why your body developed an alarm response to tenderness, as if it learned that kindness is a disguise used by dangerous people to get close. And today, many years later, when a truly good person enters your life, your inner alarm system goes off. Not because that person is dangerous, but because your body confuses tenderness with threat. What I've learned is that healing this allergy to tenderness doesn't come from convincing your mind that it's safe to receive love. It comes from your nervous system learning to distinguish between manipulative kindness and genuine affection. And that takes time and, above all, patience with yourself. This brings me to the fourth pattern, one I find particularly destructive, the constant performance. Even when you're alone, you're still playing some kind of role. You rehearse conversations you may never have, rewrite messages 20 times before sending them, adjust your tone of voice, shift your body language, choose every word depending on who's present. Not because you're dishonest, but because authenticity feels like a luxury you can't afford. In your early life, being yourself was dangerous. Showing your true face meant risking rejection, harsh criticism, the message that who you are, as you are, and is not enough. That's why you created different versions of yourself, the professional one, the social one, the family one, the romantic one. And all of these versions revolve around one central question: who do I need to be for this person to accept me? But here's the problem: if you're always performing, you eventually lose touch with who you really are beneath all those masks. And here's something crucial: mature love is not an audition. It's not a test you have to pass in order to earn affection. It is an encounter between two people who have chosen to be real, with all their imperfections, grey days, and moments of vulnerability. But if you've spent your whole life in performance mode, the very idea of being loved for your true self can feel both impossible and terrifying. This brings me directly to the fifth pattern, the silent epidemic of apologizing. I don't mean apologizing when you make a mistake. I mean apologizing for simply being. For being hungry, tired, having a different opinion, for crying, laughing too loud, or taking up space in this world. I've seen men apologize for the weather when it rains. I've seen them apologize for mentioning their own accomplishments. I've watched them apologize for needing time to process their emotions. And every time that happens, what I really see is a boy who learned that his very existence is a burden, something that constantly needs to be justified. But here's what many don't realize. When you keep apologizing for who you are, you teach others to treat you as someone who is worth less. You reinforce the message you internalized as a child, that you're not enough the way you are, that your presence demands explanation, that your needs are too much. Which leads me to the sixth pattern, perhaps the most contradictory and self-sabotaging, your magnetic pull toward emotionally unavailable people. It's not masochism, even if it might look that way from the outside. It's familiar terrain. Your nervous system recognizes the pattern, the urge to conquer love, the constant struggle to earn it, the life of uncertainty over whether you're enough. What's happening here is remarkable from a neuroscientific point of view. Your brain has learned that love is tied to effort, that fear is synonymous with passion, that conquest proves your worth. When someone offers you their love fully, when it comes easily and without drama, your nervous system doesn't recognize it as love. It reads it as boredom, as if something's wrong, as if it's too good to be true. It's as if your heart has learned a very specific language of love, the language of lack, effort, and constant proving. And when someone speaks to you in the language of abundance with ease and a love that doesn't need to be earned, you literally don't recognize it as love. That's why you end up in relationships where you have to constantly prove your right to exist, where love is given in drops and part of you is always working to be enough. And this cycle continues because you, unconsciously, are still trying to finally earn the love you never received. To prove to yourself that this time, you are worthy of being chosen. But what I've learned is this: the only way to break this cycle is through something that feels completely contrary to everything you've experienced. You have to learn to endure love that comes easily. You have to train your nervous system to recognize that emotional availability does not equal boredom, it means safety. That love you don't have to fight for isn't less valuable, it's more genuine, deeper, more real. And that brings me to the seventh and final pattern, one I find deeply moving: your great fear of becoming the very person who hurt you. You live with a constant worry that you might come across as arrogant, that you might hurt others, that you might show any trait that reminds you of the narcissism that shaped you. This fear is so strong that you often diminish yourself. You avoid recognition, downplay your achievements, deflect compliments, flee from situations where you might be seen as special or successful. Because deep down, you carry the belief that being visible is dangerous, that it might make you like the monstrous parent who raised you. But here comes the most beautiful irony I've ever discovered. People who are genuinely afraid of being narcissistic almost never are. The very fact that this thought occupies your mind, that this fear lives inside you, is proof of your empathy, your awareness, your capacity to feel with others. True narcissists don't worry about being narcissistic. They don't lose sleep over whether they've hurt someone. They don't live with this level of self-reflection and emotional responsibility. Your fear of becoming like them is, in fact, your greatest protection against it. It keeps you connected to your humanity, to your ability to feel, to your deep desire not to repeat what once wounded you. But when this fear becomes so strong that it paralyzes you, keeps you from shining, makes you invisible, then that very fear becomes a new kind of prison. And here lies the heart of what I want to share with you. Recognizing these patterns doesn't mean labeling yourself as broken or defective. It means empowering yourself to choose differently, giving yourself the tools to understand why you react the way you do, why you choose what you choose, why you feel what you feel. Because these 7 patterns are not flaws in your character. They are intelligent adaptations your mind created to survive in an environment where love was conditional, where your worth depended on whether you could make other people happy, people who weren't able to be happy with themselves. You were a boy who, with the tools available to him, did his best. And it was precisely those tools that saved you. They helped you navigate a home where emotional survival required constant vigilance, where love had to be earned, where authenticity was a luxury you couldn't afford. But now, you're an adult. And the tools that once protected you are now the very things that prevent you from living freely. The hypervigilance that once kept you safe has become anxiety in relationships. The constant explaining that once shielded you has turned into an inability to set clear boundaries. The performance that once made you acceptable has become a barrier that blocks real intimacy. But what I've learned after decades of work is this: healing does not mean freeing yourself from all of it overnight. Healing means recognizing these patterns when they appear, meeting them with gentleness and patience, and choosing new responses step by step. It means transforming your old survival strategies into tools for building real relationships in which you don't have to explain why you exist, building authentic closeness in which you're seen without having to pretend, building love you don't have to earn, because it's given to you for who you are, not for what you do. And I want you to know this: if you recognized yourself in these patterns, it doesn't mean you're doomed to repeat them forever. You are not broken, you are not too damaged to be loved. You are a person who survived something they should never have had to endure. And now you have the chance to choose something entirely new, because mature love exists. It is not the kind of love you must earn through endless explanation. Not the kind of love you must constantly monitor for fear of losing it. Not the kind of love that requires you to hide who you are. Not the kind of love you must apologize for just because you exist. Mature love is the kind that sees you, even on your bad days, and asks for no explanation. It's the love that recognizes your fear and offers not solutions but presence. It's the love that allows you to be authentic, imperfect, human, that is not afraid of your boundaries but respects them. That does not punish you for your wounds, but stays with you as you heal them. And that kind of love, that love is waiting for you. Not as a reward for perfect healing, because healing is not a destination you arrive at and stay forever. Healing is a process, a daily commitment to yourself, a conscious choice to respond differently each time old patterns arise. Healing is that moment when you feel yourself wanting to over-explain. And instead, you take a deep breath and trust that your no is enough. It's when your body tenses in response to a loving gesture. And you consciously choose to stay present, to allow yourself to be touched by that tenderness, even if it feels unfamiliar. It's when you notice yourself slipping into a role and instead reveal a piece of your true self, even if your voice trembles. It's when you catch the apology forming on your tongue and instead say, "I need this," without explanation. It's when you feel drawn to someone emotionally unavailable and you consciously turn away and move towards someone who is truly present, even if your nervous system resists because it doesn't yet recognize this kind of love. And it's when the fear rises that you might become like the person who hurt you, and yet you don't shrink yourself but recognize that fear as proof of your empathy and allow yourself to shine, knowing that your light doesn't dim the light of others but invites them to shine alongside you. Each of these choices is an act of extraordinary courage, because you are choosing the unknown over the familiar, healing over survival, growth over repetition. You are writing a new story with an ending your inner child never dared to dream of. Your story with narcissistic parents taught you how to survive in a hostile environment. But now you have the chance to learn something entirely new: how to flourish in a space of love, how to build relationships grounded in mutual respect, authenticity, and the beautiful imperfection of two people who have chosen to grow together. And I want you to know this is not only possible for you, it is your right. You have the right to be loved without conditions. You have the right to take up space without apology. You have the right to set boundaries without endless explanations. You have the right to be seen, known, and valued for who you are. The love you are looking for not only exists, it's also looking for you. But in order for you to recognize it when it comes, to allow it to stay, you must do something that may feel like the hardest thing in the world. You must begin to treat yourself with the same tenderness you offer others. You must start speaking to yourself the way you would speak to your closest friend, someone who has lived through what you've endured. You must begin to defend yourself with the same strength you would use to protect someone you love. You must start to see yourself through eyes of compassion, the very eyes with which you look at others who've survived similar wounds. Because the deepest truth I've learned is this: you cannot receive love you don't believe you deserve. You cannot build healthy relationships while you're still trapped in a toxic relationship with yourself. You cannot give to others what you continue to deny yourself. That's why healing always begins with you, not with finding the right person to heal your wounds, not with better explanations of your needs, not with more convincing behavior to be accepted. Healing begins with the recognition that you deserve love, simply because you exist, that your worth is not up for negotiation, that you don't have to earn your place in this world, that you, exactly as you are, with all your wounds, your patterns, and your story, are enough. And from this place of radical self-acceptance, from this solid foundation of self-love, you can begin to choose relationships that honor who you are, not the ones that force you to be someone else. The path to mature love is not perfect. There will be days when old patterns speak louder than ever, There will be moments when the familiar melody of survival feels safer than the new song of healing. And that's okay, that's part of the process. What matters is, you now hold the keys, you now have the map. You now know that the patterns that have accompanied you your whole life are not your destiny. They are your starting point, the place from which you choose something different, something better, something worthy of the man you've become, despite everything. And this man who survived, who grew, who chose healing over repetition, this man deserves a love that celebrates him, not one that merely tolerates him, a love that sees him, not one that overlooks him, a love that walks beside him, not one that keeps him small. That love exists, and you, exactly as you are right now, are worthy of it.